On this episode of Road Dirt, Rob and Ted talk track days. Stay tuned. Hey, this is Rob and Ted with Road Dirt, and we are on a long distance teleconference call together because we want to talk about something that Ted got to do recently that I've done before a few times. He's done a lot more of these than I have. Several of the other guys with Road Dirt, Ryan Nolan, some of the other ones have done them as well, do them with regularity. And that is a motorcycle track day weekend. And I don't know how many of you out there have done these, but it's been a few years since I've done one, but man, I miss it. I don't have a track prepped bike anymore. And I miss having one because track days are an absolute blast to ride for sure. And I'm over here in Georgia. Ted's all the way on the opposite end of the country over in Wenatchee, Washington. And the closest track to you is the Ridge, right? Ridge Motorsports Park.
Yeah, there is a smaller one between here and there, Pacific Raceways, but since Moto America has made the Ridge at Shelton their northwest stop, they've improved the track surface quite a bit and improved a lot of the curbing. So it's a Moto America quality track.
It's quality, yeah. It's a definite impressive track. I'd love to get out there someday and ride that, with you, just to do a track a Saturday or something like that. Maybe on the Unicorn. I don't think you'd probably let me do it on that. But so tell me about your track weekend this past weekend. Anything stand out about it? What's the bike you use? First of all, you ride track days. You got a very track specific motorcycle. It's a street legal one, but you kind of tune it and tire it and gear it for tracks, don't you?
A little bit. I think that's one of the barriers that people see to track days is they think they need a specific track prepped motorcycle. But if you look at most of the people in the beginner class or the intermediate class, they're riding their street bikes. Yeah, they've got the headlights taped over. They've got the side mirrors taken off. They've got the license plates taken off and all the glass taped over. And they're out there riding what they ride normally in the street, which is not a bad idea because you get a better feel for the bike and its performance envelope when you're on the racetrack, free from police, deer, old ladies driving big yellow Cadillacs. So my bike is actually my street bike. It's an old Honda Superhawk that I've kind of lovingly and just lightly modified for track use. It's got a full, what will be considered a stunt cage on it. So when I go down, it'll just slide across the pavement instead of tumbling and spitting off expensive parts. I've grafted on CBR front brakes, changed the gearing a little bit, taken a couple of pounds of metal off the flywheel. So it gives it a lot of drive and hook out of corners, but I also ride it on the street too.
Yeah. It's a beautiful bike. I've been up there and seen it with you before. So how long have you been doing track days? How many years have you been doing these now?
I'm trying to remember. I think I did my first track day in, 2018.
Yeah. You try to do 2 or 3 a summer, don't you?
I try. It's tough sometimes to fit them into, the touring schedule with as much as I'm on the road with my VFR, but at least once a year, just because it really is a great way to keep my skills sharp.
Yeah, it is definitely that. When I used to do them, I had a 1999 Triumph Sprint 955 ST, which was their sport tourer, but the previous owner had special great competition shocks and competition shock in the rear and Öhlins, and it had performance cartridges in the front, and it would really been kitted out for track days. I don't know if he ever did them, but man, I took it to the track at Road Atlanta, Talladega Grand Prix in Alabama, one down in Savannah several times in the years I had that bike. I was always in the beginner class, same thing like you're talking about, just, disabling the lights with pulling the fuse or something like that so that none of that would activate, and taping over, headlights and taillights and, folding the mirrors down or removing them. Real simple prep just to get it ready for, the beginner class, which is all I was ever comfortable in. And, but it's all I ever needed. It was an absolute blast. And, you're probably like me. You can think of, it was not only a lot of fun. I mean, I even did a story on it called Above the Ton, what it feels like to ride a motorcycle up in the 100s and just the sensation of that. But there's a lot of great street skills, especially if you do it on, like you're talking about, if you do it on your street bike, which my Sprint was, that translate to road riding as well. And what are some of the things you find that kind of by learning them and practicing them on a track that actually make you a better street rider?
I think the best way to describe it is it really expands your performance envelope, not only of your skills, but also what you realize the bike is capable of. And then you realize lean angles that you used to think were pretty close to scraping an exhaust or foot peg really weren't as close as you think.
Right.
When you're on the street and you think you're getting on the brakes hard, you go to a track and realize what truly getting on the brakes hard is. And so those moments on the street where you thought you were in a panic because you're getting pretty close to the edge of the performance envelope of your bike, you realize how much is really in reserve. So what it does is it really relaxes you on the bike, because even when a panic situation hits, you realize not only how much performance the bike has left over, but how many skills you have left over. Learning, how to balance the front brake and not jam on the front brake, but make sure that first 5% of braking is gradual so you can load the front, expand that contact patch of the front tire and get more weight on the front, which allows you to brake deeper and deeper. And how actually trail braking helps the bike turn in. You talk to most people like, oh, no, don't ever get on the brakes in a corner. But getting on the brakes and trailing them off as you tip the bike in actually increases the bike's ability to turn. So all those things you learn on the track absolutely translate to the street.
Yeah, they really do. I know when the times I've done them over the years, about 5 or 6 of them, I think total over the years at different tracks like here, like that in the Southeast, I always use, and I'm still a member with them. So hopefully I'll be able to do some more someday with a bike, with an organization out here on the East Coast called N2 Track Days. And in fact, I think they even sponsor some riders, some teams in the Moto America series and some of the classes. And the guys and the gals that are control riders with them, really in a lot of ways, they don't just manage traffic and keep everybody riding safe and out on the track, but they also serve as rider coaches. And I've had some really great tips by coming in from, a session, and one of the guys will walk up to me to my tent where I've got my bike and say, hey, I got an idea for you. And then he'll show me something, a way of positioning on the bike or pointing your toes out, things like that in the direction of the turn, that I go, oh my gosh, that's even better, so. And you probably, what organization do you guys use when you're out there, when you've been at the Ridge?
You can look at the internet and find the local track day provider close to you. There's tracktime.net, California Superbike School, which I would highly recommend. I did my last track day with a nonprofit called Optimum Performance Rider Training. They were very user-friendly and a great way to start if you're a beginner and you've never done a track day and you're kind of intimidated by the idea of starting. But I agree with what you're saying about the coaching. No matter how good you are at a sport, you've always got a coach. This is true for any major sport, but also on a motorcycle too. And having a fresh set of eyes watch your riding habits is a great way to break those old habits you developed over years and replace them with new, more effective ones.
Yeah, that's for sure. So any memorable experiences out on the track that you can share? Memorable or crazy?
I had a few on my track session yesterday.
Yeah.
There was 1 or 2 times I caught myself going back to my old habits of target fixation. coming into the carousel at Shelton, which is a very long left-hand curve, I missed my braking marker, and for a split second started looking off into the dirt. And if you know anything about Shelton, you absolutely positively do not want to go off into the dirt at Shelton. It is go for holes and landmines, and it eats bikes and riders for a living. And having been to the Moto America races there, I just had that flash of picturing myself missing my braking marker, going off into the dirt and just doing a tumble. But then I remembered how much performance I had left over. So even though I missed my braking marker, I still got on the brakes, turned my bike on the brakes, and made my corner. Just had one of those times where I remembered, okay, your bike follows your eyes. And if I look towards the dirt, I'm heading towards the dirt.
That's true.
So even though I missed my braking marker, I turned my head towards the apex, and my bike followed me right towards the apex. That was a memorable experience. The other one that was kind of on the good side was to slow down riders on the straight at Shelton. They've put it in a chicane. Otherwise, if they don't run the chicane at Shelton, it's a half-mile long straight, and you can get some good speed. So coming out of the chicane on the last turn, I got on a little bit too much throttle with the bike at too much of a lean angle, and the rear end stepped out quite a bit to where it slid and got really greasy. But then I remembered my lessons of whatever you do, don't back off on the throttle, because that's how people high side. So I stayed on the throttle, and the back end stepped around, and had one of those moments where I realized that panicking would have made things worse, and staying on the throttle is the best way to control it.
Yeah, that's for sure. What have we called those before? Butt pucker moments.
It was a miniature pucker moment, but I'll have to admit, between you and me, when I was done, I let out a little bit of a giggle, because there's a certain amount of pleasure of leaving a big, long black streak when you're exiting a corner.
Yeah, that's for sure. But I think we probably both have said before that every street rider, especially riders, not necessarily that ride Harleys, although I think everybody should, but definitely folks that ride, sport bikes or, sport touring bikes, those naked sport bikes, even modern classics like, the Triumph Bonneville 900 that I have now and others like that. I think nearly every rider would benefit from doing a track day at some time, just because, the environment, the coaching, getting a feel for what the bike is capable of and what you're capable of under controlled conditions, everybody going in the same direction and things like that, really has a way of giving you more confidence when you're out on the street, because you go, man, I can handle this more than I thought I could. You make a great point about that earlier when you said that, you realize that the bike has more capability as far as not only at the throttle, but at the brakes also, and in turn in and things like that, than you really have to use on the street by and large. So it kind of gives you that added confidence when you're out on the street, when you realize how deep you're using all that, and you come to use it and get comfortable with it on a track day.
I agree. You bring a good point about let's call it Runway Brung. I run in the intermediate class, and even in the intermediate class, there's a mix from, CBR 1000s all the way to naked bikes. But in the beginner class yesterday, there was an older guy in a full Aero Stitch one-piece suit riding his BMW GS, and he was out there having a blast. Some people think, well, I really don't have a track bike. I really shouldn't just take my street bike and tape up the lights and go run on a racetrack. When actually, that's probably exactly what you should do, because you'll know what your bike can do. You'll know what it can't do. I mean, you do need to prepare for gear and make sure you're adequately covered, leathers, full gauntlet, gloves, boots that cover the ankle, and a full face helmet, not a modular one. But that's a guy running out there in his BMW GS. I see people on Ninja 400s. Last year, I had somebody scream by me on the straight on an old Yamaha VMAX, and he was having an absolute blast. So in the beginner class, some people are afraid of, getting streaked by some racer. And actually in the intermediate class, think of it as a really entertaining group ride with no police, no center lines, no deer, and no worries.
Yeah, for sure. I can remember one year when I did one out at Talladega Grand Prix. They call it Little Tally over in Alabama. And it was a whole weekend. I pulled in Friday. We did a little bit of a session Friday, got familiar on track, did an all day Saturday and all day Sunday, and then went home. There was a guy there that brought a, I don't remember the year of it, but it was a Harley Davidson Sportster 883, without the bags in the windshield, just a basic Sportster 883, and, man, he was rocking that Harley out on the track, having a great time. Not as fast as some of the other ones, but I wasn't either. But man, what a great time just riding with him and watching him, getting in behind him and things like that at times on a dadgum Harley, man. And
you bring up a good point that he's out there having a good time. This is not a race.
It is a heck of a lot of fun.
Track of lap times. None of us are Ryan Nolan, who's our staff racer.
Yeah.
Nobody is out there winning medals. There's no podium. There's no umbrella girls. The whole goal is to go out there and increase your skill and have a good time.
I think the biggest obstacles to overcome with trying to start up with a track day is the anxiety and the intimidation. Because, even as simple as where do I park? And,
my first track day, I was that way. I was nervous. I showed up with my trailer. I welded up, and everybody's got these beautiful race haulers. But once you get on the track, it really doesn't seem to matter, does it?
And also recognize the fact that nobody's paying attention to you. You come out here and have performance anxiety, and you think, oh, what are they going to think of me? They don't. They're caught up in their own world. So everybody's out here to enjoy themselves and have a good time. And I think most everybody would be amazed and surprised at the friendship and camaraderie at a track day
like that. Everybody mills around with each other, and they stop by each other's tents and chat and talk up each other's bikes. It's just a the riders that get out there and act like it's a race, like it's a Moto America race, the control riders jump on them quickly and either put them in their place or won't let them go out. But by and large, everyone I've ever done, everybody just thoroughly enjoys the time and the time with each other. I'll tell you a crazy experience I had. The very first one I ever did was at Road Atlanta. And that's quite a track for your very first track day, Well, the track that even Jake Gagne has called a roller coaster before. And doing that one, I remember I arrived in the rain. It was just deluging, man. It was just pouring rain. And I got there ahead of a couple of guys that had invited me, and they were going to be arriving soon. And so I'm trying to set up my tent in the rain and get the bike off the trailer, thinking to myself, this is not good for my very first track day. I don't want to ride this in the rain. And of course, by the time the rider meeting and everybody you're going through, you get your bike tech inspected, make sure everything's up to snuff. And the clouds broke and cleared off. And the track started to dry by about 10 a.m. and we were able to get out on it. Man, we go up through the, turn one, up through the S's, all the way up to the back, of Road Atlanta, which is all the way up the top of a hill, turn 7 and turn 8, I believe is what it's called, or 6 and 7. And man, there was pieces of bike fairing strewn all over the track, And I was like, somebody already went down, so I couldn't see where it was. I was trying to keep my eyes, going through those first curves there, and there's just pieces of debris on the track. And so I go past that, and I'm headed down that long. It's like a 3/4 mile downhill with a couple of kinks. The straight, the back straight at Road Atlanta is legendary, and it's all downhill too. And a control rider gets up alongside of me and kind of looks at me and gives me a thumbs up, like, "Are you okay? Everything good?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then he blasts on past, and they flagged it for a minute. And I just remember thinking to myself, started in the rain. Rain's fine. I'm dodging bike parts up at the top. Should I really have come today? Turns out to be the most fun weekend I had ever had. And it got me hooked on track days because the rest of the day was gorgeous. Sunday was incredible. And I got so comfortable and had so much fun by the end of the weekend. I knew I'd be doing more of it. And I did, and so there's my story. It was a great time.
You bring up a good point. They're absolutely addictive, not because we're adrenaline junkies, but because we love motorcycles. And it's which
means we're adrenaline junkies.
All of the other worries that we usually have.
Yeah.
We can just relax and ignore all the distractions and just focus on riding.
Yep. And you got to admit, I mean, we are adrenaline junkies. You know,
And
there
maybe a
is
little bit.
there is something addicting about speed, and being able to enjoy that. Like Peter Jones said in his book, you know, The Bad Editor, it's not so much the speed, but it's the speed of getting to speed that is such a thrill and such a rush. And if you know what I mean by that, and it really is true. So, man, I hope you get to do some more this summer. I hope there's a time where either with a press launch or something like that, that I'll have an opportunity to get back on the track, because I really miss it, and would love to have a track bike, or at least one I guess I could, the old Bonneville. I guess that little 900 Bonneville would do it. But
oh yeah, I'd love to see you out on the track on the old Bonnie.
Yep, on the Street Cup, you know, with those bars on, it'd be a great time. So, well, Ted, man, anything else to add before we close this up about track days?
I just
thoughts,
hope
recommendations,
that out there's
please?
some people that are kind of on the fence about their track day. I know that you mentioned racetrack to anybody on a motorcycle, and immediately, you know, there's some fear that comes up, and it's natural. You know, you picture riders streaking by you or dive bombing you into corners. But once you figure out that people are separated by classes to prevent that happening, and you realize how quick your riding can progress, you can progress your riding skill more in one day in a track day than you can for years of riding on the street. And hopefully that'll inspire some people to go out there, try one, and improve their skill sets to hopefully prevent future accidents.
Yep, I totally agree. It did that for me. I know it's done it for you, and that's why we highly recommend it for sure. Well, this is Rob and Ted for Road Dirt.